I never trusted silence. It's the space where bad things hide, where doubt creeps in and wraps around your throat like a noose. And for the last few weeks, my marriage had been too quiet. Not the comfortable kind of silence, but the kind that made the air feel heavier, like something was pressing down on me, suffocating me slowly. Maybe that's why, when I caught my wife in the back seat of my own car, draped over my so-called friend like he was the only man in the world, I wasn't even surprised. Shocked? No. Furious? Absolutely. But surprised? That ship had sailed a long time ago. It started earlier that night, a casual plan that turned into ing disaster. My buddies and I were supposed to go out, grab drinks, talk about anything except work and responsibilities. My wife, let's call her Lauren, insisted on coming along. Not in the I miss you, let's have fun together kind of way, but in the way a cat plays with a mouse before ripping it apart. I should have said no. I should have followed the gut feeling that told me something was off. But I didn't. So there we were, packed into my car, and of course, she chose the back seat. Not next to me, not even up front where she usually sat, but right in the back, directly beside him. Adam. A guy I'd known for years. Someone who had been to my house, eaten at my table, laughed at my jokes. A guy who had always been just a little too charming, a little too familiar with her. But I never gave it much thought. Until now. I heard it before I saw it. That low murmur of voices, the way she laughed at something he said, soft and intimate like a secret whispered between lovers. Then, in the rearview mirror, I caught it, her hand on his leg. It wasn't a mistake, wasn't accidental. It was a deliberate touch, a silent conversation I wasn't a part of. The worst part? Adam didn't move her hand away. I gripped the steering wheel so hard I thought it might snap in half. My heartbeat pounded in my ears, drowning out the music playing on the radio. For a moment, I considered pulling over right there on the highway and dragging both of them out onto the pavement. But I didn't. I kept driving, my jaw clenched so tight it ached. Lauren must have felt my stare burning through the mirror because she finally looked up and met my eyes. And then she did something that almost made me lose control of the car entirely. She smirked. Not a look of guilt, not panic, not even the fake innocence I might have expected. No. She smirked like I was some idiot who didn't know the rules of the game she was playing. I forced my eyes back on the road, breathing in through my nose, trying to keep the rage from swallowing me whole. Maybe I should have confronted them right then and there. Maybe I should have made a scene. But no. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction. I was going to let her dig her own grave first. I don't remember the rest of that drive. I must have followed the GPS, changed lanes when I needed to, obeyed traffic signals out of sheer muscle memory. But my mind was somewhere else, circling around that smirk, that tiny flash of arrogance that sent a wildfire through my veins. By the time we pulled up to the bar, my hands were steady, but my thoughts were a storm. I had two choices. Explode now, flip the table before she even had a chance to stack her cards, or wait. Wait and watch, let her think she was winning, let her believe I was clueless. I chose the second. We stepped out of the car, and Lauren barely glanced at me as she stretched, letting out a small satisfied sigh, like she had just woken up from a peaceful nap instead of violating every ounce of trust in our marriage. Adam was right next to her, too close again, his hand brushing against her lower back as she adjusted her coat. I clenched my jaw so hard I thought my teeth might crack. I wasn't the jealous type. Never had been. Jealousy was for people who doubted themselves, people who weren't secure. But this wasn't jealousy. This was something else. This was watching someone spit in your face and smile while doing it. Hey, you good? That was my friend Mark, standing beside me, lowering his voice so only I could hear. I must not have done a good job hiding the way my whole body had tensed up. I forced a breath through my nose and nodded. Yeah. He didn't look convinced, but he didn't push it. We all headed inside. The bar was packed, bodies pressed close, the air thick with the smell of alcohol and sweat. Neon lights flickered, half illuminating the space in erratic flashes. A live band played some classic rock song, loud enough to rattle the tables. Lauren led the way like she owned the place, her heels clicking against the worn wood floor, her laughter spilling out over the music. Adam was right beside her, and they found a booth near the back, slipping in like a couple on a date. Like it was their night, not mine. I slid in across from them. Mark and the others filled the remaining seats, oblivious to the tension thick enough to choke on. Someone waved a waitress over, drinks were ordered, and the night should have moved forward like any normal outing. But it didn't. Because Lauren was putting on a show. She leaned in too close when Adam spoke, hanging on to his every word like he was the most fascinating man in the world. She touched his arm when she laughed, let her fingers trail just a little too long before pulling away. Her body language wasn't subtle, not to me. And the worst part? Adam wasn't stopping her. He was enjoying it. I felt my pulse in my throat, a slow, heavy pounding that kept time with every movement she made. And then, just to twist the knife, she turned to me. "Babe, you don't mind if I steal Adam for a dance, do you?" The table went quiet. My fingers tightened around the glass in front of me. I looked at her, really looked at her, searching for any hint of hesitation, any flicker of guilt. Nothing. She was testing me, pushing to see how far she could go before I snapped. I took a slow sip of my drink, the ice-cold burn doing nothing to put out the fire in my chest. Then I set the glass down carefully, deliberately. "Why would I mind?" I said, voice even controlled. "You seem to be enjoying each other plenty already." For the first time that night, I saw a reaction. It was quick, just a brief pause in the way she held herself. But it was there, a flicker of annoyance, like I wasn't playing my role correctly. Then she smiled. Sweet, fake. "Don't be ridiculous." She grabbed Adam's hand and pulled him toward the dance floor, and I just sat there, watching my wife wrap herself around another man, in my line of sight, as if I was nothing more than background noise. I wasn't going to be background noise for long. I don't think I blinked once while I watched them dance. I sat there, hands resting on the table, fingers drumming against the wood in a steady rhythm that didn't match the pounding bass of the music. Around me, my friends were talking, laughing, drinking, but it was all muffled, distant, like I was underwater. All I could focus on was the way Lauren moved. She wasn't just dancing. She was performing. Her body swayed with the music, slow, controlled, like she was pouring herself into every movement. Her hands found their way to Adam's shoulders, sliding down his arms, her fingers lingering at his wrists before she spun away, only to press her back against his chest a moment later. She tilted her head, laughing at something he whispered in her ear. "And Adam? That smug son of a bitch wasn't even trying to play it off." His hands found her waist, his grip firm, his movements synchronized with hers. This wasn't just friendly. This wasn't just fun. This was a deliberate humiliation. I could feel Mark's eyes on me, probably waiting for me to react, to do something, to stop this. But I didn't move. I just kept watching. Because the longer I let this play out, the clearer it became. This wasn't a one-time thing. This wasn't Lauren getting caught up in the moment. This was established. The way they moved together, the unspoken familiarity. It was a script they had rehearsed long before tonight. And now they were brazen enough to act it out right in front of me. A slow breath left my lungs. I reached for my drink and took another sip, letting the burn of whiskey settle in my chest. Fine. If this was a game, I'd let them think they were winning. Lauren twirled again, this time facing Adam, her hands running up his chest. His grip on her hips tightened. The lights of the dance floor flashed red, blue, then white, catching the sharp angles of her smirk. The same smirk she had given me in the car. Something inside me snapped. I pushed back from the table, my chair scraping against the floor loud enough to make a few people glance my way. Mark looked at me, brows raised in silent question. "I need a smoke," I muttered. I didn't smoke, but I needed air, needed space, needed a moment before I did something I couldn't take back. I stepped outside, the cold air slamming into me like a wall. It was a sharp contrast to the suffocating heat inside, and for a second, I just stood there, hands on my hips, staring at the pavement. What the hell was I supposed to do? A breakup? A divorce? That seemed too simple, too clean. Lauren wasn't the type of person who would let go easily. She was the type who played with her food, who enjoyed the process of destroying something before walking away. And Adam? He was just another pawn in her game, too stupid to realize she would chew him up and spit him out when she was done. I exhaled, watching my breath curl in the cold air. My fingers twitched at my sides. I wanted to hit something, break something, but I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me lose control. Not yet. The door behind me swung open. I turned, expecting Mark. Maybe one of the other guys coming to check on me. It wasn't. It was her. Lauren stepped out like she owned the night, like she knew exactly what she was doing and had already planned out her next 10 moves. She pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders and met my eyes with a look that was just a little too pleased. "You left," she said, tilting her head slightly. I didn't answer. I just stared at her, waiting. She sighed, stepping closer, her heels clicking softly against the pavement. Don't be dramatic. I almost laughed. Dramatic? Dramatic was her practically making out with Adam on the dance floor 5 minutes ago. Dramatic was acting like I was the crazy one for noticing. I stayed silent. Lauren rolled her eyes. Oh my God. Are you seriously upset? Something in my expression must have given away more than I wanted because her smirk returned. That same self-satisfied, condescending smirk that made my blood run hot. You're imagining things, she said, her voice softer now, like she was humoring me. I was just having fun. You don't control me. I clenched my jaw so hard I felt the muscles twitch. Having fun. She shrugged. It's just dancing. Just dancing. I let the words hang between us. She took another step closer, her perfume invading the space between us. You're cute when you're jealous. My fingers curled into fists. Jealous. Like I was the one being unreasonable. Like she hadn't spent the last 2 hours throwing every ounce of respect for me into the gutter. Go back inside, I said, my voice controlled, even. Lauren raised an eyebrow. Excuse me. Go back inside, I repeated. Go enjoy your dance. Enjoy your night. Something flickered in her expression. She hadn't expected that. She had come out here expecting me to argue, to shout, to beg. But I wasn't going to give her what she wanted. Because I wasn't playing her game anymore. Without another word, I turned and walked away. She didn't follow me. I walked. Not toward my car, not toward anywhere in particular, just away. Away from the music, the suffocating heat of the bar, the thick scent of her perfume still clinging to my jacket. The cold air bit at my skin, but I barely felt it. My mind was too loud, my thoughts a tangled mess of anger, betrayal, and something else, something worse. Clarity. Because the further I got from her, from them, the more I started piecing things together. This wasn't new. This wasn't some drunken mistake. She had been preparing for this moment. Every glance, every smirk, every deliberate touch, it wasn't just about Adam. It wasn't even about attraction. It was about control. Lauren was testing how much I could take before I snapped. And now, when I hadn't reacted the way she expected, she was probably back inside, sitting across from my so-called friends, laughing at my expense. Maybe Adam had his arm around her now. Maybe they were whispering about me, sharing some inside joke, waiting for me to come storming back in, red-faced and furious. I wasn't going to give them that. I needed to be smart. My feet had carried me 2 blocks away before I finally stopped, the city lights buzzing overhead. I dug my phone out of my pocket, my fingers hovering over the screen. Who the hell was I supposed to call? Mark? He'd been watching everything unfold, but even he didn't fully understand. The other guys? They were either oblivious or too drunk to care. Then it hit me. There was one person who might have answers. I scrolled through my contacts, found the name I hadn't thought about in months, and pressed call. The phone rang once. Twice. Then, damn, haven't heard from you in a while. The voice on the other end was casual, but there was an underlying curiosity there. Everything good? I exhaled. Not really. Silence. Then, a knowing sigh. It's about Lauren, isn't it? Bingo. I clenched my jaw. What do you know? A pause. I think the real question is, how much do you want to know? Something about the way he said it sent a chill down my spine. This was worse than I thought. Tell me everything. He hesitated for a moment, then I heard movement on his end, like he was getting up, stepping away from wherever he was. His voice dropped lower. All right, he said. But you're not gonna like it. I already didn't. I turned, staring back at the bar in the distance, the neon lights flickering in the night. Lauren was still in there, probably thinking she had everything under control. She had no idea what was coming. The moment he said, "You're not gonna like it," I knew whatever was coming next would change everything. I stood there, gripping my phone so tight my fingers ached, waiting. The city buzzed around me, cars rolling past, distant laughter from pedestrians, the occasional blast of music from a bar down the street, but it all faded into the background. The only thing that mattered now was what he was about to say. He sighed on the other end. Look, man. I wasn't sure if I should ever bring this up, but since you're calling me now, I guess it's time. I swallowed, my throat dry. Time for what? Another pause. Then finally, I've known for a while. A rush of cold ran through me. Known what? That Lauren's been messing around. I blinked. For a second, I thought I hadn't heard him right. But the words just sat there, hanging in the air, taunting me. Messing around. I turned away from the bar, pacing a few steps before stopping. You knew. My voice came out sharp, sharper than I intended. How long? There was a long silence on the other end, and that told me everything. A few months, he admitted. A few months. I let out a sharp breath, running a hand down my face. The anger that had been simmering all night finally started to boil over. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. And you didn't think to tell me? I wanted to, he said quickly. But I didn't have proof. And I didn't know if you'd even believe me. I gritted my teeth. As much as I wanted to stay pissed, I couldn't exactly blame him. If someone had come up to me a few months ago saying Lauren was cheating, I probably would have laughed in their face. She's been careful, he continued. She's not stupid. But there've been little things. Slipping up on details. Saying she was one place when I knew for a fact she was somewhere else. And he hesitated. And there's Adam. My stomach twisted. What about Adam? You think tonight was the first time she's gotten close to him? He let out a dry, humorless laugh. Man, they've been doing this for weeks. Maybe longer. I felt like the ground beneath me had disappeared. Weeks. This wasn't just a one-time slip-up. This wasn't just Lauren getting too drunk and making a bad decision. This was planned. Ongoing. And worse, everyone else seemed to know before I did. Who else? I asked, my voice low. What? Who else knows? Another pause. Mark had his suspicions, he admitted. I think some of the other guys did too. But no one wanted to say anything. No one wanted to be the guy who blew up your marriage if we were wrong. I let out a bitter laugh. Yeah? Well, congratulations. It's already blown up. Silence. I took another step away from the bar, staring down at the pavement, my mind racing. I'd spent the last few weeks ignoring the signs, brushing off the late nights, the whispered phone calls, the way she had started pulling away from me. I told myself it was stress, work, boredom, anything except the truth. But now the truth was sitting in my hands, impossible to ignore. Lauren had been cheating. For weeks. Maybe longer. And tonight wasn't just an accident. It was a message. She wanted me to know. She wanted me to react. She wanted to see if she still had control over me. I closed my eyes for a moment, breathing in the cold air, trying to slow my racing pulse. Then I opened them, looking back toward the bar. The anger was still there, still burning hot in my chest, but beneath it, something colder had settled in. A sharp, clear understanding. Lauren thought she had the upper hand. She thought I'd come running back inside, grab her wrist, make a scene, demand answers. She thought I'd lose. She was wrong. I wasn't going to explode. I wasn't going to fight. I was going to end this on my own terms. I turned back toward the street, my grip on my phone tightening. Thanks, I said. For telling me. Yeah, he muttered. I'm sorry, man. I hung up. Then, without hesitation, I pulled up my messages and started typing. Lauren wanted a game? Fine. Let's see how she handles losing. I stared at my phone screen, the message half-typed, my thumb hovering over the send button. There were 100 ways I could play this. I could call her out right now, force her into a confrontation she couldn't wiggle out of. I could go back inside and let everyone see exactly what kind of person she was, strip away the perfect image she tried so hard to maintain. Or I could walk away and never look back, let her sit there waiting for me to react, wondering why I wasn't falling into her trap. But none of those options felt right. Lauren had been planning this. She had done this for weeks, maybe months, carefully balancing her little game between secrecy and arrogance. She had convinced herself she was untouchable, that no matter what, she'd come out on top. If I wanted to win, I had to do more than just expose her. I had to take away her control. So I erased the message. I put my phone back in my pocket. And I walked back toward the bar. Not in a rush. Not storming in like the betrayed husband ready to start a fight. No, I walked like a man who had nothing to lose, like I had all the time in the world. Because if Lauren thought she could manipulate me, if she thought she could push me to the edge just to enjoy watching me fall, she was about to realize she wasn't as smart as she thought. I pushed open the door, stepping back into the warmth, the scent of alcohol and sweat hitting me immediately. The music was still pounding, people still laughing, still drinking, still oblivious to the fact that a war had just started. And there she was. Lauren. Sitting in the booth, drink in hand, a satisfied little smirk on her lips. Adam was beside her, relaxed, comfortable, his arm now fully draped along the back of the booth behind her. Too familiar. Too casual. It wasn't even about attraction, it was about ownership, staking his claim right in front of me. She turned her head slightly, her gaze finding mine across the bar, her smirk widening just a little. She thought I was coming back defeated. I smiled. A real smile. Not angry. Not forced. Just calm. And that's when I saw it. The way her smirk faltered just for a fraction of a second. The way her posture stiffened, barely noticeable, but I noticed. Because this wasn't the reaction she had expected. I strode over to the table, sliding into the booth across from her like nothing had happened. I didn't look at Adam. I didn't acknowledge him. Because he didn't matter. She did. Hey, babe, she said, tilting her head, watching me carefully now. You okay? The way she said it made it clear she wasn't asking because she cared. She was testing me, waiting to see if she had rattled me enough. I leaned back, relaxed. Yeah, I said. Why wouldn't I be? She studied me, her smirk returning, but I could see the gears turning in her head. She wasn't sure what was happening now. She had expected anger, maybe even jealousy, but not this. I picked up my drink from earlier, swirling the ice around before taking a slow sip. My eyes never left hers. She raised an eyebrow. So, you just left me out there? Alone? Her voice was light, teasing, but there was something underneath it. I set my drink down, tilting my head slightly. You didn't seem too concerned about being alone, I said. Then I gestured lazily toward Adam. Besides, you had company. A flicker of something passed through her eyes. Annoyance. Maybe. It was quick, but I caught it. She laughed, shaking her head. Oh, come on. You're not actually mad, are you? Why would I be mad? I asked, genuinely curious. Lauren blinked. I could see the moment she realized she had miscalculated. She had spent the whole night poking me, waiting for me to explode, waiting for me to confront her, to give her something to fight against. But instead, I was sitting here, calm, collected, smiling at her like she was the one who had something to explain. She shifted in her seat. It was just dancing, she said again, that same rehearsed line. You're being dramatic. I didn't respond. I just watched her. The silence stretched between us. And for the first time all night, Lauren was the one who looked uncomfortable. She glanced at Adam, like she was expecting him to jump in, but he was quiet too, because this wasn't his fight. He wasn't expecting me to handle this like a man who already knew everything. Lauren turned back to me. What? She asked, her voice sharp now. Why are you looking at me like that? I smiled again. Like what? Like you know something I don't. I let the silence drag a little longer, just enough for her to start second-guessing herself. Then I leaned forward slightly, dropping my voice low enough that only she could hear. I do. Lauren's entire expression changed. Her smirk vanished. Her fingers tensed around her glass. Her body went still as if waiting for the next move. She opened her mouth probably to throw out another excuse, another lie, but I didn't give her the chance. I stood up. Enjoy your night, I said easily, grabbing my jacket. Then, as I turned, I let my hand brush lightly against the table, just enough to knock over her drink. The liquid spilled onto the table, spreading fast, dripping onto her lap. Lauren gasped, jerking back, eyes widening in shock. Oh, I said, pausing for just a second. Careful. Then I walked away. And I didn't look back. The cold air outside hit me like a slap, but I welcomed it. It was sharp, real, something I could focus on while the storm inside me raged. Lauren had spent weeks, maybe even longer, playing her little game. Toying with me. Seeing how far she could push before I snapped. Tonight, she had taken it to a whole new level. Right in front of my face. Right in front of our friends. And she thought she'd get away with it. But I saw it, the exact moment when she realized she was losing control. When my silence became more terrifying to her than my anger ever could have been. That moment when I leaned in and said, I do. It was like a crack in a mirror. Small at first. Barely noticeable. But once it starts, it spreads. Fast. I wasn't done. I walked down the sidewalk, hands shoved in my pockets, my mind already calculating the next steps. I needed to be smart. Careful. Lauren was manipulative, but more than that, she was dangerous in the way only a person with no real consequences can be. If I made one wrong move, she'd flip the script, twist the narrative, paint herself as the victim. I wouldn't put it past her to accuse me of something just to come out on top. I needed proof. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw the name flashing on the screen. Mark. I exhaled through my nose, debating whether to answer. He had been there the whole night, watching everything unfold. He had seen Lauren drape herself all over Adam, had seen my reaction, had seen me walk out. Yeah. He knew something was up. I swiped to answer. You left, Mark said immediately, his voice slightly slurred. Drunk, but still aware. Noticed that, huh? I said dryly. A pause. Then, dude, what the hell is going on? I smirked. What do you think? Mark let out a long breath. I think your wife is screwing around. And she's either really bad at hiding it or she just doesn't care anymore. Bingo. I didn't respond. Mark groaned. Jesus, man. You're really not gonna say anything. Oh, I'm gonna say something, I said. Just not yet. Another pause. You got a plan? I glanced back toward the bar, its neon lights flickering, the bass still pounding from inside. Lauren was probably still sitting there, still trying to process what had just happened. Maybe she was in the bathroom trying to clean the spilled drink off her dress, cursing my name under her breath. Good. Yeah, I muttered. I got a plan. Mark hesitated. You need backup? That actually made me huff a laugh. Not unless you know a good divorce lawyer. Silence. Then a soft whistle. So it's like that. It's like that. Mark let out a deep sigh. Listen, man. I should have told you earlier. About Lauren. About Adam. I know, I cut in. Doesn't matter now? Another pause. Then, quieter. You all right? I exhaled. Ask me tomorrow. Mark didn't push. All right. Just, don't do anything stupid. I hung up. Then, I scrolled through my contacts and found the number I really needed. I hit call. It rang 3 times before a voice answered. Well, she said. If it isn't the husband. I let out a slow, dark chuckle. Hey, Claire. Lauren's best friend. And the one person who hated her even more than I did right now, Claire laughed. A slow, knowing sound that sent a sharp pulse of anticipation through my veins. Well, she said, her voice laced with amusement. This is a surprise. Is it? I leaned against a lamppost, watching cars roll past, my mind already spinning with the possibilities of this conversation. Claire wasn't just some random friend of Lauren's. She was the friend, the one who had been there before me, the one who had seen Lauren at her worst, and the one Lauren dropped the moment she became inconvenient. Can't say I expected a call from you, Claire said, her tone light, but I could hear the curiosity underneath. Things must be pretty bad if you're reaching out to me of all people. You tell me, I said, pushing off the lamppost and starting to walk again. How long has Lauren been cheating? Silence. Not a gasp. Not an immediate denial silence. And that told me everything I needed to know. I smiled, though there was nothing remotely funny about any of this. So you knew. A sigh crackled through the speaker. It's not that simple. It is for me. Another pause. Then finally, yeah. I knew. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. How long? Claire hesitated, and for a second I thought she might try to soften the blow. But then she spoke, and her voice was cold. Honest. Since last summer. I stopped walking. Summer. Almost a year. I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply, letting that sink in. This wasn't some brief mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was deliberate. And Lauren had spent all that time lying straight to my face. Claire must have sensed my silence meant something because her voice softened just slightly. I wanted to tell you, she admitted. But Lauren, she made it clear that if I said anything, she'd ruin me. I opened my eyes. Ruin you? Claire let out a humorless laugh. You know how she is. She finds weaknesses and she exploits them. She would have made my life hell. Probably would have convinced you I was lying too. And the worst part? You would have believed her. I couldn't argue with that. Back then, I probably would have believed Lauren. I would have defended her, told Claire she was just bitter, just jealous, just trying to stir up drama. Because that's what Lauren does, she makes people doubt their own reality. I gritted my teeth. Who was it? Another pause. Which time? Claire asked. A cold chill ran down my spine. I pulled the phone away from my ear for a second, staring at the screen like it might rewrite what I just heard. Which time? I repeated. Claire sighed again. Look, I don't know how much you already know, but Adam's not the first. He's just the latest. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I had spent the night thinking Adam was the problem, thinking he was the one who had betrayed me the most. But Adam was just another name on a list. A list? How many? My voice was lower now, deadly calm. Claire hesitated. At least 3. That I know of. I let out a slow, shaky breath, pressing my free hand against my forehead. The anger had been simmering beneath my skin all night, but now it was something else. Something colder. I need proof, I said finally. Claire was quiet for a second. You really going through with this? What do you think? Another beat of silence. Then, I might have something for you. My grip tightened on the phone. I'm listening. I kept some of her texts. Not because I planned to use them, I needed proof for myself. She told me she wasn't cheating, swore on everything. But I knew she was lying. And I needed to see it in writing. And you still have them? Claire exhaled. Yeah. I stared out at the street, watching the headlights of passing cars blur in the distance. Lauren had been so sure she was untouchable, so sure she could manipulate everyone around her without consequences. She was about to find out just how wrong she was. Send them to me, I said. All right, Claire said. But if you're going to blow this up, do it right. No screaming matches, no throwing punches. You want to destroy her. I smiled, the first real smile I'd had all night. I already know exactly how I'm going to do it. My phone vibrated in my hand. One new message, then another, and another. Claire wasn't wasting time. I swiped open the first one, my pulse a steady drum in my ears. The texts weren't screenshots of some vague, flirty conversation. They were detailed, filled with dates, times, names. Lauren hadn't even bothered to cover her tracks. She had texted Claire about it like it was casual gossip, as if cheating on me was just another part of her weekly schedule. Ugh. Jason is being so clingy lately. Can't wait to see Alex tonight. OMG, I told Jason I was at yoga, but I was actually with Tyler. He has way more stamina, lol. Adam is getting bolder. I think Jason's suspicious, but whatever. He won't do anything. That last one. I stared at it, my jaw tightening. He won't do anything. That's what she thought of me. That I was a joke. That I just sit there, too weak, too oblivious to ever fight back. I exhaled slowly, forcing myself to stay calm. It would be so easy to storm back into that bar, grab her by the wrist, throw her phone in her face, and demand an explanation. But Lauren was a liar. A manipulator. If I confronted her like that, she'd twist everything, gaslight me, maybe even turn it around and accuse me of being paranoid or controlling. No. I needed something bigger. Something final. I typed out a quick message to Claire. Me, this is perfect. Thank you. Claire, don't thank me yet. What's the plan? Me, I'm ending this. Tonight. I put my phone away and turned back toward the bar, rolling my shoulders, my heartbeat steady. The night was far from over. Lauren had no idea what was coming. I walked back in, moving through the crowd like a man with a purpose. The air smelled of sweat, alcohol, and cheap cologne, the bass from the speakers rattling the floorboards. My eyes scanned the room, locking onto the booth where I had left her. She was still there. Lauren sat with Adam, legs crossed, drink in hand, her expression relaxed until she saw me. Her smirk twitched back into place, but there was something behind it now. Uncertainty. A flicker of doubt. Good. I slid into the booth right across from her, same place as before. Adam glanced at me but didn't say anything. He looked uncomfortable now, like he had realized too late that he had stepped into something much bigger than he could handle. Lauren, however, didn't miss a beat. You came back, she said smoothly, tilting her head. I smiled. Of course. Wouldn't want to miss the rest of the night. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You're acting weird. I leaned back, resting one arm casually along the back of the seat. Am I? She studied me, tapping her nails against her glass. She was looking for something, a crack, a weakness, anything that would tell her what I was thinking. But I wasn't giving her anything. So, I said, glancing toward Adam. You two having a good time? Lauren smiled, but I saw the way her shoulders stiffened. Just catching up, she said. Nothing dramatic. Right? Just dancing. She smirked. Exactly. I nodded as if I believed her. Then, casually, I pulled out my phone and placed it on the table, screen facing up. Lauren's eyes flickered down to it. What's that for? I didn't answer. Instead, I opened the messages. The ones from Claire. The ones where Lauren had spilled every single detail of her affairs. I tapped the screen once, enlarging the text. Then I slowly turned the phone so it was facing her. Lauren's smirk froze. Her eyes darted over the words, and for the first time all night, I saw real panic flash across her face. I didn't say anything. I just watched. Adam leaned forward slightly, trying to see, but Lauren snapped up, grabbing the phone before he could read anything. Her fingers clenched around it like she could make it disappear by sheer force. What is this? She demanded, her voice lower now, sharper. I took my time. Reached for my drink. Took a slow sip. Then I met her eyes. This, I said, is every lie you've ever told me. Lauren's breathing was quick now, her posture rigid. Where did you get this? I tilted my head. Does it matter? Her grip tightened around the phone. I could see the gears turning in her head. She was calculating. Trying to figure out how to spin this. How to flip the script. She laughed suddenly, a forced, high-pitched sound. You're really going through my messages now? Wow, Jason. That's low. I raised an eyebrow. That's low. I gestured toward the phone. Cheating on me for months wasn't low? The mask cracked. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She was cornered, and she knew it. Who is Alex? I asked. Or Tyler. Or Adam, for that matter. I looked over at Adam, whose face had paled considerably. Did you know she wasn't just screwing around with you? Adam looked at Lauren, then at me. His lips parted slightly like he wanted to say something but no words came. He was just now realizing he wasn't special. He was just another pawn. Lauren's fingers tightened around my phone before she shoved it back across the table. You don't know what you're talking about. I laughed, shaking my head. That's the best you've got? Her jaw clenched. You don't have proof. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. I have everything. She stared at me. I could see it now, the moment she realized there was no escaping this. No lying her way out. No twisting the story to make me look like the bad guy. Because I was already 10 steps ahead of her. I exhaled, then sat back. So I said as casually as if I were discussing the weather. Here's what's going to happen. Lauren didn't move. Didn't blink. Just listened. You're going to pack your things, I said. You're going to leave the house. And you're going to do it tonight. She stiffened. Excuse me. I continued as if she hadn't spoken. I've already called a lawyer. The divorce papers will be ready soon. You can either cooperate or we can do this the hard way. Lauren's lips parted, but I cut her off. Oh, and don't bother trying to take anything that isn't yours, I added. Because I've already locked you out of the accounts. That was the final nail in the coffin. She gasped, her eyes widening. You did what? I shrugged. Checked the finances. Funny how much money was missing. Hope your little dates were worth it. Her face burned with fury. You have no right, I have every right. I stood up, pocketing my phone. You lost the moment you underestimated me. Lauren was fuming, but she was out of options. Out of excuses. Out of time. I turned to Adam, who still looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. Good luck, man, I said, clapping him on the shoulder as I walked past. She's all yours. Then I walked out. And this time I wasn't looking back. The cold night air hit me as I stepped outside, but this time it felt different. Lighter. Like I had just set down a weight I didn't even realize I'd been carrying. For months, maybe longer, Lauren had been playing her games, spinning her lies, thinking she could control every piece of the board. She had convinced herself I was blind, that I was weak, that I would never do anything. She had counted on me being the same man I was before. The fool. The loyal, trusting husband who would believe any excuse, who would look the other way because love makes you stupid. But I wasn't that man anymore. And she just learned it the hard way. I walked toward my car, my hands in my pockets, my heartbeat steady. The night was quiet now, the chaos of the bar fading behind me. Somewhere in there, Lauren was probably still sitting in that booth. Her face red with fury. Her mind racing to come up with some last-minute way to salvage what little power she had left. But there was nothing left to salvage. I had taken everything from her in the span of 10 minutes. Her control. Her lies. The life she thought she had so perfectly manipulated. And I did it without raising my voice. I reached my car, unlocked it, and slid into the driver's seat. I just sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, not out of anger, but out of relief. It was over. I pulled out my phone, checking my messages. One new text from Claire. Claire, how'd it go? I smirked and typed back. Me, better than expected. A few seconds later, another buzz. Claire. She lose her mind? Me, oh, you have no idea. I could almost hear Claire laughing through the screen. Claire, good. She deserves it. Yeah, she did. I leaned back in my seat, exhaling slowly. My entire relationship with Lauren had been built on trust, my trust. And she had crushed it under her heel like it was nothing. But that was the thing about people like her. They thought they were invincible, thought they could lie and manipulate their way out of anything. Until the day they finally met someone who wasn't playing along anymore. I started the engine, the quiet hum filling the space around me. But I didn't drive off right away. Instead, I thought about the next step. Because ending things wasn't enough. I had already set up a meeting with a lawyer. Lauren was going to be served divorce papers within the next few days. I had screenshots, bank records, proof that she had drained money from our accounts for her little dates. If she thought she was walking away from this clean, she had another thing coming. And as for Adam, he was about to learn that sleeping with another man's wife didn't make him special. It just made him the next idiot on her list. I knew Lauren. I knew how she operated. She might be furious now, but it wouldn't take long for her to try and save face. Maybe she'd try to make Adam her next serious boyfriend. Pretend like this was all some grand love story instead of a pathetic affair. But sooner or later, she'd turn on him too. Because people like Lauren don't change. They just find new victims. And Adam? He was perfect for the role. I shifted into drive, pulling out onto the road. The city lights blurred past me, but I wasn't thinking about the past anymore. I was thinking about what came next. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't trapped in her game. I was free. And that was the best revenge of all.